I don't know about you, but I found 2023 to be an incredibly surprising year for video games. The only thing I really went into this year expecting was the RE4 remake. But indies and AAAs alike, I found myself actually pretty blown away by some of the stuff I played this past year. Since I played so much stuff, both new and old, I figured, hey, why don't we talk about all the random cool things I tried this year before we get to my top 10 of 2023. The final version won't be out for a little bit, but I got to try this amazing indie horror game called Fear the Spotlight. It sort of combines the look of Silent Hill 1 with the puzzles of Silent Hill Shattered Memories. The visuals are just incredible here, the pacing is really good, the puzzles are so sick, and dude, there's zero jump scares, nothing but incredible, genuinely scary atmosphere. If you're a horror fan, or somebody that wants to get into horror for the first time, please keep an eye on Fear the Spotlight when it launches sometime this year, hopefully. I also tried out the demo for another indie horror game called Crow Country, and if this isn't one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life, I do not know what is. Resource management, clunky aiming that is just so perfectly classic survival horror, and a brand new take on a PS1 horror art style, looking more bubbly like Final Fantasy VII. Holston is another one I tried the demo for, and this thing is so impressive. It's going for a similar kind of 3D looking like 2D pixel art, but with the cool lighting and flashlight that Signalis did. Except, not can you only change the rotation of the camera, but check it out. Boom! We're also doing this! No idea when it's gonna come out at all, but hey, keep an eye on Holston. As for creepy indie games that are actually out, I played one called No One Lives Under the Lighthouse. Don't worry, nobody's down there, just do your job, do your chores, take care of that lighthouse, brave the elements, suffer the isolation. And before you know it, the weirdest shit you can imagine is happening and you can't explain any of it. If you want a freaky, deaky experience, I recommend going into this game as blind as possible. I also played a game called Palia. It's basically Animal Crossing meets RuneScape. Spend your day mining, or fishing, or hunting, or bugging, whatever you want to be doing. Just throw yourself at that cozy grind, earn money, and get lots of furniture and stuff to build your very own property out in the woods. It's free to play on Switch and PC, though it's only on the Epic Games Store. That didn't stop me from getting it to run on my Steam Deck, though. Tim Sweeney can suck my cock. And yeah, this was the year that I invested in a Steam Deck. It can be kind of bunky, like it has given me a couple of headaches trying to get non-Steam stuff to work. But as somebody that really struggles to play games at his desk and does not have a good setup for recording PC games, this has been an incredible solution. So naturally, I kind of opened a rabbit hole. I've been playing so many more PC games than usual this past year. Replayed Half-Life 2, because of course that's a Valve go-to, and I don't think I really appreciated just how freaking good this game is when I first played it as a teenager. The shooting mechanics still feel really unique and fun as hell, and you gotta love how much exploration there is in this game. Played a lot of Hexen 2? That's a really confusing game, but holy heck is it fun. I love how much you can break stuff in the environment, just looking around for all the secrets and stuff. I had such a good time with it. Replayed Mankind Divided on it, and oh my god, is the Steam Deck a good way to play this thing. I even got that Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition HD on PC working on it. Ooh, this is the way to play this game. Don't buy that remake. Don't do it. Killer 7. I haven't played this game since I was in high school. I've been itching to play that HD version forever, but it was only on PC. This has got to be one of the coolest video games ever made. It has aged unbelievably well. Please, if you have a PC to play this on or a Steam Deck, play Killer 7. It is Suda's best work, in my opinion. I played so much Sonic Adventure 2 with mods this year. The way that you can fix every random, tiny, annoying thing with mods. Map the light ring dash to a different button, fix the radar so the dingers are dinging all at once, not to mention all the different playable characters that you can add. Oh, Blaze has always been my favorite character by a mile, and being able to play as her in my favorite Sonic game when those two things are normally very far apart, I don't know, there's something very magical about that. And the extended Chow Garden, getting Zelda and Kirby hats for my guys? Ah, yes please. Speaking of fixing Sonic games, I was playing Sonic Project 06 on this thing. Never in my life would I imagine Sonic 06 would end up being one of the better Sonic games. I'm not even exaggerating. All of those little things that kept hanging up the pace, like the homing attack, you can just spam that and just plow through the enemies now. The spin dash actually feels good and carries your momentum when you jump out of it, and all of the performance and graphical updates and everything, like I cannot believe the work they did on this thing. Though I don't think I played any game on Steam Deck as much as Majora's Mask Ocarina Combination Randomizer. This is actually some of the most fun I've had all year. On the subject of ROM hacks, B3313 is something I've wanted to exist for a very long time. Weirdo dream liminal space Princess Peach's castle. Everything looks and sounds not quite the way you remember it, and the deeper and deeper and deeper you go, the weirder and weirder and weirder things get. Can't say I was a fan of the jump scares, though. The creepy atmosphere stands out so well that it really just doesn't need that. I still had a pretty great time with it, though, and man, using this thing as a dockable Switch with emulators, compatible with all sorts of different controllers, this is the piece of hardware I've needed my whole life. I'm not being paid to say this or anything, but like, if you're staring down the barrel of a price that big, this thing is so much more worth the money than the PS5. It really is that useful. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk was actually the very first game I ever bought on Steam instead of console at launch. I mean, I just want to play it on this thing. Absolutely incredible how well this thing faithfully brings back and evolves the look and style of Jet Set, though I didn't find myself into it as much as I thought I'd be. It's gotta be something about the physics, I think. I just feel like they were a lot more challenging in Jet Set Radio. Cocoon was another game I played on Steam Deck. The whole concept of the puzzles going in and out of worlds and bringing them within each other is so incredibly fresh and exciting and fascinating, though the puzzles don't get nearly as complex as I was hoping. But like his previous games, Limbo and Inside, you're really here for the themes and the art. And oh my goodness, this whole idea that there's something always bigger than you, and once you're at the very top, you still have no way of knowing whether or not you're still smaller than something else? Staring into infinity and knowing it goes so much further than you could ever understand. How it's all conveyed through these squeamishly foreign visuals that you just cannot make sense of, yet you do, by recognizing the interactive elements on screen and solving the puzzles using this nonsense. It may not have challenged my brain as much as I was hoping for, but man, is it a deeply fascinating experience. Interior Worlds is another cozy little game I played a lot on Steam Deck this year. You wander around these liminal spaces made with this really sick PS1 art style, and you just snap in pictures, and that's pretty much it. Go play it, it's cheap as hell and it's cool as shit. Well, hopping away from the Steam Deck for a minute, I got into Returnal this year. Holy hell, I cannot believe how much people have been sleeping on that thing. That is such an incredibly fun roguelike. This is gonna sound kind of weird, but it sort of plays like an even better version of Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. You're gonna be putting just as much thought into your character's movement as you are the shooting. There's actually a lot of platforming here. In fact, there's more of it than there is in any of the Ratchet & Clank games. And there's also like this really crazy twist halfway through. It is so freaking sick. If you like stuff like Risk of Rain and you're itching to play something on your PS5, then I recommend you get Returnal. Dead Space Remake was also pretty solid. Pretty cool revisiting all these areas, and it looks, yeah, super duper graphics. The changes to the story were welcome, and of course the controls feel better than ever. But overall, I think it was kind of an unnecessary remake, but hey, I still had fun with it. Nintendo re-released two of the best video games. Pikmin 1 and 2 are some of the most delightful games you will ever find that have really unique and fun as hell gameplay. They both hold up so incredibly well, and it makes me so happy to see that a whole new generation of people are able to play these games now. Metroid Prime also got an incredible remaster. This is the best way to play this, because they didn't just remaster the graphics, but they also remastered the controls. Now that is how you do it. The atmosphere and exploration in this game are fantastic. I wish the combat wasn't so boring. They also put out a new WarioWare game that is just like WarioWare Smooth Moves. I can't say I like it as much as Smooth Moves, but this is something the Switch has needed for a very long time. And they made it just as weird and strange as you would hope for. Speaking of weird, I busted out the DS to replay through Sims 2 DS. If there's anything I would love to come back, it is this kind of game. And no, they're not Sims games. They're more like weird social adventure RPGs? I don't know, but I love them. I also finally tried the English translation for Nanashi no Game, aka the Nameless Game. It follows these students that all have this same PDA thing that their school gave them, and they find out they can download this game to it, but everybody that plays it goes missing. It is spooky as hell, meta as hell, and cool as hell. If you want to play a horror game that's actually pretty scary on the DS of all things, try Nanashi no Game. Thank the Lord for the people that make these English translations, dude. Because of these people, I got to try that Japanese exclusive DS Chibi Robo. That thing is so cool, it is so cute. But what am I doing talking about the DS of all things? You're here for the games of 2023, right? So yeah, there's a whole bunch of random stuff I played this past year, new and old, but now we're getting to my 10 favorite new releases. So yeah, here's my 10 favorite games that came out in 2023. Number 10. First off, we've got this spooky little fishing game called Dredge. This one is much more of a casual game, very relaxing. It's just really great to put on when you want to unwind with some spooky vibes. Hop in your boat and start catching fish, and every now and then, one of the fish is kinda scary. What horrors lay for you to discover out in the unknown blue? You'll have to sail out and drop a line to figure that out. You got this great gameplay loop of scooping up fish, selling them all, and upgrading the heck out of your boat. Rinse and repeat until you're the most badass eldritch fisherman in the sea. Perhaps the most curious thing about 2023 was that it was the year that the 3 best N64 3D platformers ever made all came out. One of those is this adorable 3D platformer called Cavern of Dreams. If getting lost in hazy and weird worlds is your kind of thing, then this is the platformer for you. You play as this little dragon guy, and it's your typical N64 collectathon. You're scouring each level for objectives and unlockable abilities that'll grant you access to more parts of the sprawling cavernous overworld. The movement here is pretty interesting. The character has a lot of weight, so you can't really jump very high, but with that weight comes momentum. It's really easy to get a lot of speed, and sometimes getting around will require taking advantage of that. It's pretty different, and it's very cool. It's a really easy game to relax to. The music and areas and everything are delightfully tranquil. Just walking around each cozy map and meeting all the weird characters and figuring out what to do. This one is perfect for fans of that dreamlike N64 haze. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those games that you hear all of these ridiculous stories about, and they all sound too good to be true. Like, is there really that many options in this game? And then you play it, and it's like, oh my god, there really is. Trying to make choices matter and really impact your playthrough is something that video games have been promising and not really doing, at least not to its fullest extent, for a long time now. It's just become one of those big marketable features. But this is the game that, actually does that to a ridiculous extent. I remember this one boss fight, you had to rescue somebody and their cage was on fire, so it's okay, you have this amount of turns to win the fight before the wood gets burned through and they fall down and die. But I had a bottle of water in my pocket, I thought, would this work? And I threw it at the cage, flames went out, no more time limit, we could just do the boss fight comfortably. When we actually got to the city of Baldur's Gate, I decided I'm gonna be the richest person in this city. And part of being the richest is making everybody else not have money. So I was just being super thief, stealing every single coin that every single person had. While I was doing that, my wife was actually doing the main quest stuff. The multiplayer split screen in this game is absolutely unreal. The amount of freedom player 2 has to go out into the world and do whatever they want. You're not really tied to the first player like you usually are in games like this. Now, I'm not really much of an RPG guy at all, especially CRPG type stuff, but Baldur's Gate 3 is one of those games that is just so freaking good that even people like me that do not play these games, it's okay, even I gotta give this thing a playthrough. It is probably the single most impressive RPG I've ever played. 7. I feel like now that Tears of the Kingdom is out and everybody really loves it so much more than Breath of the Wild, I can finally come clean and be honest. I didn't love Breath of the Wild. I thought it was an incredibly impressive game that I wasn't super duper into. I beat it, I did all the shrines, but I never had any desire to really return to it because I don't know, maybe I'm just too bad at thinking of creative ways to really engage with my environment in that game. Tears of the Kingdom is the one though that I feel like I can actually think of a lot of silly ideas on how to do things, and you can actually do all of those dumb ideas. The entire building system, essentially turning this into like, what if Banjo Nuts and Bolts was actually a really, really fun and good game? And I tell you, there's nothing I love more than simply getting physics object X to position Y, and the journey there being a bunch of chaos and bullshit. The gameplay loop here is just incredible. The whole thing where you're bouncing between the sky and the ground and the underground, grinding for the resources you need to explore each one back and forth, like getting the bright bloom seeds, bringing them down, and then combing through this massive map of darkness. That was easily the most fun I've had with a Zelda game in years. It's just building contraptions to try and get through this pitch black gigantic area and gradually combing through it, lighting it up bit by bit, piece by piece. I didn't record any footage of my playthrough, so all this footage is like from me at the end of the game, so it doesn't really come across, but this is like the first time a Zelda game has genuinely instilled fear in me. Truly exciting fear of the unknown that you want to journey into and overcome and conquer. I just love how many different ways there are to approach any situation, like even combat stuff. Eventually, my go-to was making 3 little sentry drone tank things with a bunch of laser beams. I would send them off into the next room, and I'm hearing war going on in there, and I'm sitting in here making a soup.
Number 6.
I swear Capcom is slowly becoming one of the last AAA companies you can actually count on. They've been hitting it out of the park non-stop these past couple of years, and that RE4 remake was pretty freaking good. What can I say? I just really love these new Resident Evil games. The way they control and feel, the gunplay, the inventory management, how snappy it all is. I especially love when they really get you to scramble around the environment, and using Resident Evil 4's map design as a template for one of these kinds of games just made a whole lot of sense. I kind of think of it less like a remake and more of a new game that's just doing the same story and maps, because the gameplay and tone here really have their own appeal. They're really doing their own thing. Like, I do agree with the general sentiment that while some characters have been fleshed out really well, others kind of had the whole charm just flattened right out of them. There is still a lot in here that you won't get from the remake. But as an original take on the scenario and characters and maps and stuff that aims to be somewhat more grounded while still preserving a little bit of the goofiness, I do think it does a really good job of standing out on its own as a really good survival horror game, instead of feeling like it's trying to replace the original. I mean, hell, Capcom still has it up on pretty much everything, for an affordable price too. I must have replayed this thing over a dozen times this past year. It's just so addicting and fun, and going through it with your new weapons and upgrades and stuff, and learning all of the dumb little tricks along the way, that was also super cool. Oh, and I was also lucky enough to try the VR version, and this is easily the best VR game I have played since Super Hot VR. And yeah, that means it is the best VR thing I've played since I first played VR years and years ago. The amount of control you have here, all of the actions and gestures, juggling everything physically as you whip out badass move after badass move. It is an incredibly fun way to play this thing.
Choking to death on caviar was the poshest way by far.
Man, that was the last time I played through an RPG Maker game. Well, a new one at least. I still play Yume Nikki all the time, but this is the first one I played in ages where I really found myself drawn into it emotionally. Swollen to bursting until I am disappearing on purpose. A long, bulky title to accompany a short, cozy game that explores a lot of complicated feelings and stuff. If I had to describe this game, I'd say it's Yume Nikki meets Tulip. You've got the cute little pixel graphics, you know, reminiscent of something like Pokemon, the exploration of frightening and nonsensical worlds, all wrapped together by the adorable little town of Vomit. You're a little courier delivering little packages, and through obtaining these different effects, you find yourself walking in the footsteps of someone who used to be here. Somebody that we learned was sincerely struggling. Making progress often involves doing something pretty obscure or like really thinking outside the box. Almost feels like there's some Petscop influence here. And I don't just mean like the visuals because that's obvious, but I mean like the way you make things happen and like the way that you have to interpret what people say as a clue. It's one of those one-person project games, and this dude just nailed everything. It's got such a foreboding sense of style, and I love the way everything is presented, this cool 3D look to it. Even the music is totally original, and it is unbelievably good. You can tell it's a deeply personal game, and I really do think it's going to affect a lot of people in a meaningful way. I'm sure the 9,000 IQ group will write it off as another Earthbound thing for teens, but I genuinely believe that the subject matter here is far more real than anything I've ever unraveled in a game like this before. It's free to play on Steam, so if you want something that's both cozy and haunting and unpacks a lot of emotions and psychology and is maybe even something that you'll relate to a lot, then you really should try Swollen to Bursting. I cannot believe this game finally exists. This was one of those vaporware games that you would always hear promised about forever ago, and so much time passes and passes, and you don't hear anything about it until you're questioning whether or not it's real, whether or not it was real to begin with. And then one day a trailer just randomly comes out, and it's like, oh my god, it's real! It's real, and it's coming out soon! For the majority of my life, the Pikmin games have been some of my most favorite things of all time, and you do not get another one of these very often. And if Pikmin 3 was something akin to Pikmin 1, then Pikmin 4 is the answer to 2 that I was really hoping they'd do. Not only do they have the underground dungeons returning from 2, but they have a lot of characters and enemies from 2 here as well. The big game changer here is actually Ochi though, and I didn't really think much of him from the trailers, but when you're actually playing it and you realize, okay, instead of having like, here's another captain, now you have 4, it's like, let's go back to 2 captains, except they're like different. They can do different things. Your guy can fit through the smaller cracks and can do the charge thing, but Ochi can do a different type of charge thing. It can break stuff and can swim in water and jump. And sometimes it's worthwhile to have them together. A lot of times it's worthwhile to have them separate. And it felt like I was actually thinking a little bit more about the context of which captain's going where. The lower camera angle, I think, was a really good decision because not only does it help add to that feeling that you're a tiny little thing in a huge world that towers over you, but it's also really good at helping just see what's over there, like whether you're watching your Pikmin finish tasks or you're trying to look for treasure and stuff. And I've heard some people argue that Pikmin 4 is the easiest one yet. I do agree that they kinda go nuts giving you way too many assist items without you really trying to grind for it. Pikmin 2, I feel like you only really had that stuff if you were making an effort to try and stock up on it, but Pikmin 4 I didn't at all, and I just had so much of it. Though I think the real reason why a lot of people who grew up with Pikmin 1 and 2 find this game really easy is because so much of the enemies and bosses are recycled from 2, which means I just already know what to do. I walk into a boss room, it's a new boss, but I already know how to beat it efficiently. It was a few times the game actually threw something new at me that I found myself facing an actual challenge. The few surprises that are here really do manage to leave an impression. I think we can all agree that Groovy Longlegs is one of the coolest fights in the entire series. I went into it blind and it knocked the dick right out of my shoes. The new nighttime levels were also a fresh, welcome addition. It kind of felt like they made a tower defense sort of thing out of Pikmin, like except you're using a new Pikmin type that warps to you after it's done bringing something back. It's all offense and none of the waiting. It really ended up being a lot more fun than I expected. I did find myself wishing there was way more surprises though. There was only a handful of new bosses, but hey, with how the series is finally seeing some actual success now, I'm hoping they're gonna make a Pikmin 5 that leans way more into having brand new freaky bosses and hazards and stuff. Because my favorite memories playing 2 was walking into a creepy little room for the first time and having no idea what boss was going to show up, or how to even react to it for that matter, but 4 only really did that for me a handful of times. But even if it did leave a little bit to be desired, I was so glued to this thing. Just the amount of joy I was having going through a new Pikmin game that was made with so much love and care. The mechanics are good. I'm seeing all of this stuff I grew up with returning with the new graphics and stuff, and you get to respond to it with the new Pikmin types.
I don't know, it was some of the most fun I had all year.
I think Pikmin 4 really found out how to nail the pacing of a Pikmin game, creating all these different modes that you bounce between instead of having them locked in their own separate categories. The challenge mode, Dandori battles, caverns, and then also the nighttime stages. Having all these different things to bounce between really does help with the pacing.
If anything, it's the best entry point into the series. It's definitely the easiest to control, and they familiarize you with a lot of stuff that you'll see in the previous 3 games as well. So if you want to get into Pikmin for the first time, Pikmin 4 should be the next game you pick up.
Number 3.
I can't exactly say that I expected a boomer shooter of all things to be one of my top 3 games of the year, but oh my god, Slayer's X just does everything that makes these games amazing, and so much more. Hella tight and snappy gunplay, tons of exploration with all these destructible environments that are just packed with so much detail, and you've got this arsenal of weapons that are just as inventive as they are a blast to play with. With how fast it is just to jump into this thing and start a new game or whatever, like this is a thing that I found myself coming back to over and over again the most this past year, especially after I got that Steam Deck. Being a silly spin-off game of the silly game Hypnospace focused on the single silliest character, Zane, I expected just like a big boatload of irony. But they stick the landing here with so much authenticity that it ends up coming across as just as much of a celebration of our dorky, doom-obsessed metalhead teenage years as it is a parody of it. It's loaded full of nostalgia for a time long past. My favorite is when you clear all the enemies out and the music changes to something more somber and ambient, and suddenly the level transforms from a shooter map to a lonely trek through the memories of Zane's childhood. On the surface, it's a goofy comedy game with some really tight shooting mechanics, but deeper under the hood, it almost turns into a character study. Remember how Yume Nikki is kind of like learning all of these things about the character by examining the dreams they're having? It's just like that, except we're examining the game this guy made. I mean, everything that he put in here is emblematic of his past and his experiences, and you can learn so much about Zane just by picking up on all the little details. It is unbelievably cool, and certainly not something I expected from a game like this. On top of being an incredibly fun, replayable shooter, it also gave me those feelings that I love getting from cool, weird indie stuff. This game right here, this is one of my favorite 3D platformers I have ever played in my entire life, and I swear to you, I am not even remotely exaggerating. Pseudo Regalia is the game that finally truly scratched that itch left by Mario 64 well over 20 years ago. A game of diverse movesets that gives the player all the tools they need to create their own little combos, dancing across each obstacle in your own way, unleashing a flurry of inputs each and every time, developing muscle memory and finessing your platforming craft until you can bounce across the world effortlessly like a pro. It's got hands down one of the best wall jumps in any video game. I can attest to that personally, and you've got so many options that when I broke down this moveset, there were more poses and options than there were in any platformer I've ever analyzed before. And to top it all off, you have a great character design with lots of personality, fan-freaking-tastic music, awesome non-linear progression that actually encourages player freedom, and a hazy N64 look and feel that will pluck those dreamy, nostalgic neurons like a harp. It's like the second best N64 game ever made, and it came out the same year as the best N64 game ever made. All of us have dreams, and many of us dream about finally getting a weird new Banjo-Kazooie game. Well, I'm here to tell you that you have to dream no longer, because that game does exist. It's just not called Banjo-Kazooie. It's called Corn Kids 64. You play as a little goat guy, and he's having that nacho dream again. Except, wait, where's the nachos? This little guy wants his goddamn nachos. So in true dream world nature, we have to complete a series of completely unrelated and random platforming and collectathon tasks to make progress towards our very tasty goal. While I do think the movement of Pseudo-Regalia is more impressive, it is the world-writing visuals and mechanisms that this game just knocks so far out of the park that I was physically unable to put this thing down until I had it completely completed. The density here, like how interconnected every little thing is, especially in the town level. There's secrets around every corner, hidden in plain sight, and even when you have all of the abilities, many objectives will still escape your peripherals. It is a game where you're in one little spot and you're just playing around with it until you find more and more things that you're able to do and find. All the stuff you do with this character is just brimming with creativity. I love how it's all focused around Sev's little goat horn. From drilling through dirt surfaces like a mole, to twirling bomb chickens off of it, to screwing in these big valves, to ramming your skull into a vending machine to score some health items. You got that classic cynical snark that you've come to expect from the Banjo games, but instead of feeling forced or ham-fisted, it is remarkably endearing. A lot of characters are just this perfect blend of adorable and needlessly spiteful. People are so mean to each other in this game, but it is also lovable and full of original personality, instead of just feeling like they're copying and pasting Banjo again. And for a game that's more focused on the world and puzzles like Banjo, the platforming mechanics here still manage to be incredibly impressive too. Here's another game with an amazing wall jump. Not only does it feel great, but it also works so differently than anything I've tried before in 3D. It almost feels like a 3D version of Mega Man X's wall jumping. You're more so vaulting yourself alongside the wall rather than like kicking off of it. Though you can still vault away from the wall with some precise enough inputs. It takes a little bit of practice and some finagling, but oh my god, it feels like you have to get good at it before you can do it. Just like Pseudo-Regalia, it is one of the best and most original feeling wall jumps I have ever used, and I swear I am not exaggerating. I swear I'm not exaggerating. It is literally that good. Oh, and I love how they handle the fall damage. You have this button that makes the camera look down below at your feet, so you're always looking down off of cliff edges for the mattresses to land on. Otherwise, you're gonna clock your brains out. The animation, dude, oh my god, the graphics and the sound are just an absolute joy. The animation is so top freaking notch. I mean, Sev very quickly became my favorite character design of all time. I really do think I mean that. I love simple designs, big, simple shapes, not a lot of things going on, yet they convey so much expression. That is my all-time favorite stuff, and Sev is just one of the very best examples of that I've ever seen. I actually love this character so much, it's not even funny. Please make a plush of him. Pseudo-Regalia did that. That was a miracle. Give us another miracle. Corn Kid 64 not only harnesses the feel and look and vibe of that old kind of thing we love, but it pushes those mechanics, it pushes that world design into new, brilliant territory that we have not seen. This is the best N64 game I've ever played, and it is my favorite video game to release in 2023.
What do you mean no Spider-Man 2? What do you mean no Mario Wonder? I didn't play those games. I wonder if I ever will. No, I don't know. I never felt like doing it. I feel like the older I get, the less I'm interested in like franchise games and just a series doing the thing again, as much as I just really care about indie games that are doing new, weird stuff, or are taking existing things and pushing it so much further than you can really get from, like, I don't know, current AAA games.
I'm not trying to say that these sorts of games aren't worth playing or that you shouldn't play them. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'm just getting a little bit old. I guess I've been playing games for like, what, 26 years now? So at this point, I'm bound to feel like I'm going through the motions when I play a game made to have a wide appeal like that. And you know, I'm kind of bored of games looking like real life at this point already. It's like I miss when games looked like video games. What's wrong with that? Corn Kids looks like an N64 game, but better than what the N64 could make it look like, and it looks really good. I'm far more interested in that. I mean, every game I'm looking forward to this coming year is an indie game. Crow Country especially. Oh my god, I'm so stoked for Crow Country. It looks so cool. You know, maybe I never need a new Silent Hill to ever be good again because, well, maybe these indie games are just doing what I wanted Silent Hill to do. Maybe I don't need a new Banjo because maybe indies just took that and made what I wanted. Maybe we don't need a new Mario 64 because Pseudo-Regalia shows you that you don't need to be looking at a plumber to be playing Mario 64. You could be looking at a goat lady because Mario is not the plumber. Mario is the moveset, and that's what I'm here for. Whoa, what's that? You want a brand new Sonic game with a bunch of really good rolly, bouncy physics physics and momentum and stuff, well, Sega sure as hell is not gonna make it, but you still got something big to look forward to. It's just not called Sonic. There's 2 of them. I have 2 examples on screen right here. The video's like over and I'm still showing you new games. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of random stuff I played this past year. Hopefully I was able to put something interesting in front of you. I hope I was able to make people united with some stuff that they would enjoy playing. But yeah, I'm definitely trying to put more indie stuff on these lists as time goes on. Not just because, you know, I'm more interested in them as I get older, but also because I think it's more likely people haven't found these games yet. And with how, like, blown away I've been by them, I really do think it's something I should get in front of more people. So with that said, you can expect a indie platformer volume 2 video very soon. And 2024 is also my 10th anniversary on YouTube. This year marks 10 years I've been doing this, so it's pretty wild that I've been able to do this long and I'm still trucking along. So I want to give a big thank you to everybody who's watched and supported the channel. Hopefully this year I'm going to be doing some very exciting stuff. I want to do some videos I've always wanted to do since the beginning, namely LSD and Hotel Dusk, and I might do some revisits, so maybe expect an episode about Star Tropics and maybe Gex again when that trilogy launches, if that comes out this year. And I would also love nothing more for my 10th anniversary to be the year that I finally revisit the Silent Hill franchise. Because, buddy, that Silent Hill 2 remake is coming out very soon. I really gotta make a video about that, and who knows, maybe I'll even have time to re-review the original as well. I'm sure I have much better and less dumb things to say about it now than I did when I was like a dumb 19-year-old, right? But yeah, hopefully there's a lot of stuff to look forward to on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for watching what's gonna be coming out. And yeah, cut me off already because I don't know how to end this. Hey, yo, what's up? Hey, thanks for watching my video. Thanks for watching. You watched the whole thing. That's amazing. That's a huge compliment to me, dude. Clearly, it's good enough to, like, tolerate. If you liked it, why don't you click the like button? I don't know if I've ever even said to do that at the end of a video before. I don't know if I'll ever do that again. It felt horrible.